ICEY is a short 2D side-scrolling action game made by FantaBlade that features a beautiful design for a main character, a great soundtrack, and above all, a satisfying combat system that carries the entire experience. Throughout the game, the player is presented with a simple story led by a narrator, a mostly cohesive and aesthetically pleasing environment that kind of reminds me of Vigil: The Longest Night, which I enjoyed quite a lot, and well-made levels with branching paths that often lead to additional rewards. The game is also full of secret locations and developer messages left everywhere, including alleged prototypes of the game itself and subplots involving the narrator. Additionally, pretty much all the lore is locked behind these hidden areas, with some of them being quite hard to find. There is also a free DLC that includes a difficult endless mode which can be accessed by walking left from the metro entrance. It seems that most of the developers' focus went to refining the combat system and incorporating the aforementioned secrets into the game, which possibly resulted in the game being very short and the story being quite simple, even with additional lore taken into account. Let's move on to the star of the show, the combat system. Now, I'd rather not deal with any shattered expectations other than my own, so I'll say this right now. It is nothing compared to larger and more complex games in the genre. Neither does it attempt to emulate them, nor should it be compared to them. Overall, the combat system is quite well made and requires a surprisingly high level of skill to master. Although ICEY is restricted to one weapon only, she can obtain more moves and upgrades as the player progresses through the game. Since this is a 2D game and not a 3D one, there is a limit to the player's movement. In most cases, players are limited to 2 attack buttons and 2 directional buttons related to attacks, with special attacks, directional dodges, and counters added on top of that. Executions can be performed if the player does enough damage to an enemy or if a perfect dodge is performed. This regenerates the player's health and replenishes their shields. The only way to heal is to perform executions, with elite enemies and bosses requiring multiple. After performing one, the player can hold down the light attack button to charge up a powerful attack that covers a large area and stuns most smaller enemies. I have to commend the designers in charge of the combat system, given the number of restrictions placed on the player. Due to their decisions and how all the individual elements come together, the combat system is very enjoyable. Although I usually have an overall positive or negative view about most of the games I cover, I cannot bring myself to give an overall positive or negative review, largely because of the next few issues that I'm going to bring up. Now, it seems that my initial expectations for this game was too high. The story, although serviceable, is kind of disappointing, and although the combat is of good quality, it's not without its flaws. Firstly, ICEY's shield is not strong enough. I played on hard mode, so any hit from a large enemy and any grab attack from any enemy would break my shield in one hit on top of damaging my health. The lack of healing items exacerbates this problem and makes the game very punishing, on top of some enemy placements which border on unfair, including additional enemies in boss encounters. Fortunately, these can be worked around and overcome, which is good because it rewards experience and practice. However, the greatest flaw with regards to gameplay is that, for some reason, ICEY does not get invincibility frames when she is knocked around. In other words, it is possible to be stun-locked from full health to 0 if one is unlucky enough. This can be circumvented by jumping after getting hit, but the game doesn't make this known, so I'll hold this against the developers. This alone makes it difficult for me to praise the combat from the perspective of enemy design the same way I praised it when it came to the player's options, at least when hard mode is considered. The user experience is another issue I have with this game, albeit a rather small one thanks to my prior experiences with Monster Hunter World. From the beautiful main menu, one can access the settings like any other game, but the options are limited with no support for borderless display. It also takes a while to get used to as the settings can only be accessed from the main menu and not in-game. Additionally, some changes to keybinds are not reflected during gameplay, such as QTE pop-ups that indicate opportunities for counterattacks. After viewing a piece of secret lore, the player would usually, for some reason, be kicked back to the level select menu instead of being placed back into the level itself. This can be kind of annoying for those looking to collect all the achievements, so I'll count this one too. The final source of my gripes with this game takes the form of the narrator. For some reason, the developers decided to include a Stanley Parable narrator in an action game that definitely does not need one. Most of the story is conveyed through him instead of something else like environmental details or ICEY voicing her own thoughts, and although he does have his moments, like chiding the player for not following his arrows or his weird game developer subplot, the delivery in general kind of lacks the character that is sorely needed for a narrator that accompanies the player for the entire journey. Especially since there is no dialogue between him and ICEY because ICEY is a silent protagonist. Also, he says to follow the arrow so damn often that I was surprised to find out there wasn't a line that said, "All you had to do was follow the damn arrow, ICEY." Unfortunately, there is no way to mute the narrator for players who may not want him around. There is no such option in the audio tab for some reason. I was initially very negative towards the presence of a narrator, especially before I found some of the secret dialogue. As of now, I'm leaning towards slightly negative, and I think the game could have benefited greatly by replacing the narrator with a fully voiced ICEY, with her dialogue and tone changing as she finds out the truth along with the player as they find more secrets. In summary, ICEY is a mixed bag. A short and sweet game with cohesive and aesthetically pleasing environments, a nice soundtrack, well-designed levels with plenty of secrets, a beautifully designed main character, and a combat system with a great foundation, as in it can be easily improved by simply adding more weapons or moves. However, it is weighed down by glaring issues related to gameplay, an overly simplistic story, and a narrator that, in my opinion, should have been omitted during development. Regardless of my mixed thoughts, I think the developers should be commended for this project. I have decided with my purchase that ICEY is worth my time, and although I really want to praise the game, I can neither wholly recommend it nor can I denounce it. If you're on the fence about getting this game, I'd suggest trying it out, but don't expect much outside of gameplay. I hope that this video has made you more informed and thus more likely to either purchase this game or avoid it. If you have any thoughts about this game or made any observations that I might have missed, be sure to let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.